speaker for this evening is Robin McAlpine. Just before he speaks, well, my name's Jock Bennon, by the way, for people that don't read the papers. And I'm part of the Yes Kelty campaign. If anybody's want to get involved with Yes Kelty, if you give us a shout, give us your name and contact details, and we'll get you involved, because we have kind of regular meetings, and we're hoping to have more public meetings, obviously, as we get closer to September. So, without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Robin McAlpine from the Jimmy Reid Foundation.
Right, first of all, check your homework, and whoever the one undecided person is in here, this whole evening's for you. For the rest of you, I am so delighted to be here to talk to you. It's always a pleasure. I want to talk Common Weal. You're already persuaded. Hopefully this will get you the kick to go out and persuade a few more folk. I won't ask who the undecided person is. And I'll start profiling you. Right, what I'll do is I'll talk for about maybe half an hour just about Common Weal, what we're doing, why, what it's about, what it means, and how it's going to help us win this referendum. I'll almost certainly stick in a good 5 minutes of cheering up for a fabulous Yes campaign that's had another miserable couple of weeks at the hands of the bad guys. And I'll just stop and ask, and it's just questions. You can just ask me whatever the hell you want. And since, if I put it like this, we are a friendly audience in here, do ask me some controversial questions that you don't usually ask, and I'll answer the questions to those as honestly as I possibly can. Right, Common Weal. I'm assuming people have kind of roughly heard a little bit about Common Weal, but let me tell you how it all kicked off from. About a year and a half ago, in conversations with a number of people in Yes campaigns, SNP and others, I've been saying, look, we've got to start taking this politics out of the kind of chattering class, middle classes who constitute most of Scottish politics, who they write the politics for, who they assume the politics pages. And to be quite frank, I was shocked with a number of strategists in and about saying, oh no, but it's really about the aspirational middle classes. I'm going to clip them in the ear and say, where are you people living? That Scotland is not a country that's run by or for the aspirational middle classes. It's a much wider, more diverse community than it is. And the people that you need to speak to are the people who've done badly for Westminster. The people who Westminster's turned over, and that's not the aspirational middle classes. So I came out and I thought, you know something? It's time that we stopped chatting and yakking and complaining and moaning. Let's get our act together and let's say, what would you do to make Scotland a country fit for its citizens? What we did was we said, we're going to kick off a project. We'll take probably 6 papers, and we'll use what we say. If you were starting from a blank sheet, if you were designing your country again, what would it look like? What's the best that you could make it if you did that? So we announced it. And what happened was the newspaper actually said, listen, it was the Sunday Herald, said, we want to write something positive, what you got? And I went, this project. And that was before me at 6 o'clock on a Saturday night. I wanted to get inspirational for us. 6 o'clock on a Saturday night, 2 pints, you'll be leaving Tuesday, but I do. And it did, we just started this project. So what we did was, for this project, we realised it was a thing, we didn't have a name for it. So we went out to a bunch of writers and poets and others, and it was really Ruth Bishop and James Robertson said, well, if you want to call your project something that's about a more equal, more balanced, more even, fairer, better Scotland, call it Common Weal. Old Scots term meaning well shared in common and for the well-being of all. It's a great, we'll call it that. So we announced that, we gave them basically what happened was we paper we had, I just went through it, took every mention of Nordic out and changed it for Common Weal, gave them it, and that was Common Weal launched. And immediately, we're knocked down. We were planning 6 papers, 6 reports. We're now at well over 50. Academics, thinkers, writers, economists, activists, everybody was phoning us up saying, we want to build a better Scotland too. We want to reshape this, we want to change this. White paper's okay, but it's not good enough. We want to do more, we want to go further than this, we want to build a better Scotland. Let's contribute. Now, that's an amazing thing to have. To get knocked down by people who want to write economic policy. I mean, it doesn't sound like the most inspirational thing ever, but hell, you don't get change without people that are willing to step for it and say, no, this isn't good enough, we're going to do something better. So we got these papers, we got all these reports coming out. And as we got towards the end of it, I realised, who reads 50 academic policy reports? They pay me to do it, look what they did to my beard. Great when this started. We need to find another way to get this across to people. So what we did was, we took it all and said, let's write this up as one simple thing. and we used a number of things. There's a whole bunch of things about UK politics I despise, one of which is that they do it, to all intents and purposes, they make it well be speaking Latin. And I do this professionally, and I don't understand some of the shit they say. And I read legislation, what's that, redistributive, Gordon Brown's neoclassical indigenous growth theory. I mean, what? How the hell can we run a politics in this country that anyone understands? So, the rules were quite simple. The whole project, we had some simple rules for it. Don't say you're going to do something and don't explain how, what it's going to cost, and how you're going to go about it. Because we're getting attacked by the other side, because they're on our back, nothing that hasn't been tried somewhere else and been shown to work. So when they come and say, this isn't possible, no, it's not. So everything in this whole project has been done. It's been done somewhere else and it's been shown to work. And then we wrote it up, and the rules there were straightforward. No charts, no graphs, no jargon, no bullet points, no references, no Harvard references particularly, no footnotes, no superscript, no italics, no bold. Write it down. And it's got to be a language that any 16-year-old in this country that's finished school could understand. So we did, we wrote the book up. Now I'd love to have brought you copies to sell tonight, but I'm kind of out. When the next lot come from the printers, they are still available. You can buy them now and they'll be with you in a couple of days on the website allofusfirst.org. So you get the book there. Now I sat down to write this book. I put in, right, that's not fair. I just put together the work that everyone else had done. And I was working my way through it and we were thinking, God, 50 reports by completely scores of different academics. This is going to be tripping over itself and disagreeing and it didn't. 50 different reports, no major contradictions, no major bits where one was saying one thing and another was saying the opposite. And that's when you know we are all working in the same direction here. There's something in this that means that all these people from wherever they came are pushing in the right direction, are pushing in the same direction. And they are, and this is the direction it's pushing it on. The direction it's pushing is to say, we've had a politics for 40 years in this country that left us all in a terrible state. It's a mess. It's created a Scotland which isn't even really what it should be. So, if you haven't seen the stats, I'll tell you them again. We live, if you're a worker, if you're in here, you work. You're working in the second lowest paid economy among the advanced economies. You work the third longest hours in Europe, and every time I mention Europe, that's out of 28 countries. You work the third longest hours and you have the fewest holidays. If you are a woman, you live in a country with the 8th biggest gap between male and female earnings in the European Union, and you're paying by far the highest price in all of Europe for childcare. If you're a pensioner, you get the lowest state pension in Europe of all 28 countries, and you're the 4th most likely to live in poverty. There's only 3 countries where you're more likely to live in poverty if you're retired. If you're disabled, you have the lowest disability allowances in Europe, and you are the most likely disabled person in Europe to live in poverty. If you're a child, you're in the country that reports the lowest level of happiness in the developed world, 4th most unequal country in the developed world, highest rail fares in Europe, 2nd highest housing costs in Europe. You can do this indefinitely. Britain is a country that was designed for its elite, for its powerful, for its wealthy, and the rest of us get screwed over. Now, how you know this works, how you can tell that this is the way that politics works, because it's a conflict model. This is what they've been telling us since Thatcher came, that if you put 2 people in a room, whoever comes back out alive must be the best. If you take that person and then you back them and you put them in another room, whoever comes out of that room alive, they must be the best. If you just keep doing this over and over again, eventually we will reach the perfect society. The losers will have lost, the winners will have won, and we will have selected the best. Except for, we all perfectly well know that all you did there was select the bullies and the psychopaths. It's the bullies and the psychopaths who win. It's the Amazons, it's the Tesco's, it's the people who don't care if they're putting people out of work. They're closing down the high streets, if they're destroying your local economy. That's who wins these battles, not us. Never us. We've got to get away from this idea of conflict politics. Because everything it touches, it destroys. Conflict property, conflict housing policy. Whoever is the biggest, whoever can buy up all the land, all the available land outside your house, can control housing properties. They can dictate what you pay for your house, and they make all the profit. You can, if you're a big supermarket, you can win, you can control, you can buy land just outside a town, build a shed in a field, fill it with cheap stuff from China and close down someone's high street. Close down the whole high street, we should all be delighted, over the moon. We know what the banks have done. We know how they really treated as like targets, like something that can be just turned over. So this problem, this fundamental problem of conflict, of a politics which says just let the biggest bully win and that'll be good for us all, it wasn't good for us all. But then again, there wasn't many of us that thought it would be. If you just see it out loud and you think, my God, let the biggest bully win, how's that help? So that's where we got to with UK politics. Me first politics. That's what it is, it's me first politics. And after 35 years of me first politics, we all came second. But we need a politics that puts all of us first. That's the website. That's the catchphrase. I'll probably use that more than once and then we'll see. So, what does that mean? And what I want to do here is, because I know it's just me on, and I'll get the temptation to keep talking, so you won't probably have to do it at some point. Let me give you the sense of, first of all, precisely why it doesn't work. Precisely, so that you know. And second of all, precisely how we fix it, so that you do know. Now, why doesn't it work? It's a straightforward problem. And the problem can be identified when you look at the low wage issue. If you take what you would consider to be a decent salary, the kind of average decent salary that you would expect or hope someone would have, they can participate, they can pay their bills, they can feed their family, they can live a good life, you know, they don't struggle. They're not relying on tax credits, they're not got a tax lawyer, they're not buying Lamborghinis, you can live a decent life. 25,000 to 35,000 pounds? That's the reasonable target. Of everybody who's working in Scotland today, only 1 in 5 earns between 25,000 and 35,000 pounds. 3 out of 5 working Scots earn less than 25,000 pounds. Half of working Scots earn less than 21,000 pounds. And if you are earning 14,000 pounds, you are still better off than a third of the Scottish population. Now, that is the reality of the wage distribution in our economy. Why does it matter? Well, it matters. It matters so much. Because if you change that just a little bit, the impact is enormous. We've got a paper on our website, the Reid Foundation website, not the Common Weal website. So that's reidfoundation.org if anyone really wants to go and look at macroeconomic modelling. And what we did was we took the Scottish tax model. So this is the model of everyone that pays tax in Scotland, exactly as it stands. So we didn't change the tax rates, exactly the same tax rates. We didn't change the nominal size of the economy. So the economy didn't get bigger. We just said, with the economy that we've got, if we had distributed the wages across that economy like they do in a Nordic country, Denmark or Sweden, there, they don't have the massive pay at the top. They don't have the low pay, which for us actually begins at about 60%, more than half of the population is where the low pay starts. They don't have that. They don't have that problem. And they have many more people in work, and much lower rates of employment. So we just said, imagine that our spread of wages looked the same as a Nordic country. What would happen? That's all we changed. We're under the tax model again. It generated £4 billion of additional income. So that's the deficit fixed. That's all our problems fixed. We do not have a problem in this country of taxes that are too high. We do not have a problem in this country of public services being too generous. We have one problem in this country, that people don't have enough money in their pockets. That's where everything else comes from. If people have money in their pockets, they pay tax, just normally. And if they don't, they rely on tax credits. That £4 billion, incidentally, doesn't even include what we'd save in tax credits. Because we wouldn't be paying tax credits if people were paid a decent wage. So that's where everything comes from. That's why we can't afford public services. That's why we can't invest in infrastructure. That's where all our problems come from. We have a society which lives in low pay and poverty. We just saw that the 20% of people in Britain are the poorest in Western Europe. The whole of Western Europe, the poorest 20% in Britain are at the very, very bottom of the pile in the whole of Western Europe. We have to wake up to where we are. We are not a normal country. Why? Now, this is straightforward. It all comes down to conflict, this conflict model of economics. If you're just going to let big people win, then they set the terms. The terms that they've set is what's called profit maximising. You may have heard this. The whole point of the economy is to maximise profit. That's good for you, isn't it? No, it's not good for anybody. What maximising profit means is to take as much out as you can while putting in as little as you can in the shortest possible time. That's profit maximisation. Now, what that means is, build a shed, that's cheap. Fill it with Chinese stuff, that's cheap. Don't pay your taxes, that means you can always undercut the local economy and you'll make your profits very quickly in that one. Or a bank, sterling. If you borrow money, if you borrow sterling, you're a big player, not you. No, you borrow sterling and you'll be paying it back for forever. You borrow sterling, you're a proper player, and you haven't made a profit in a couple of hours, you done something wrong. Sterling is run at phenomenally low borrowing rates to make it perfect for financial speculation. It's one of the reasons why they won't shift to interest rates, because they don't want people to do what they should do with money, which is invest for the long term. They want people to speculate wildly, because every time they speculate wildly, it makes it look like the GDP is getting bigger, the economy is getting bigger. It's not. It just looks like it is. That's what went wrong. That's what Gordon Brown did. He made it look like the economy was getting bigger, but it wasn't. It was all fake. It was all jiggery-pokery around the edges. The one thing that you would be insane to do if you could raise money, any of you in here could raise a couple of £1 million of equity, the one thing that you'd be insane to do is invest it in productive enterprise. For the love of God, if any of you come into a couple of £1 million, don't start a factory. Don't start a business. In Britain, that is the worst possible thing to do with your money. Buy a few houses and just wait. That makes sense. Buy some bonds and stocks and shares and gamble. That makes sense. Give it to an investor. That makes sense. Anything makes sense apart from investing it. That's because we run our economy wrong. And that's where the heart of this problem all comes from. If you have that kind of economy, that profit maximising economy, by definition, that economy is a low skill, low productivity economy. Now, I'm going to explain productivity just in case people aren't familiar, because nobody ever talks about productivity in Britain anymore. Productivity is how much value is added by each hour of work. So, when you go to your job, the stuff that you do that day at your job makes value. How much value you make that day decides national productivity. Britain's national productivity is about 16 percentage points behind the average of an advanced nation. This is because we don't make things and we don't do things. We speculate. There is no productivity in retail. You're not adding value, you're just marking up. You don't make something, you don't do something. There's very little productivity in the finance sector, and there's no productivity in the property speculation. You're just buying and selling houses. Same houses that were there before and after. You're not creating value, and there's no skill involved. When people get paid, it's because they use skill. Skill is the key thing. And the most important thing is that profit, GDP, and economic growth do not make you wealthier. There's only one thing that makes people wealthier. Only thing that makes people wealthier is work. Wage growth is the only thing that makes people wealthier. We're growing the economy like we did for 15 years under New Labour in a way that wages don't grow. We might as well not have bothered growing the economy. It doesn't work. We've got to start growing the economy again. We've got to do it properly by creating productive enterprise, which involves skill. Because skilled labour means people get paid. And this is at the heart of how we change everything in Scotland. We have to get away from this economy rapidly. There's another thing that we're going to have to do if we're going to achieve that. We're going to keep going with that. We've got to throw in the bin the crazy British idea that the economy has somehow got nothing to do with you. You may have heard this before. Law of the market, don't interfere, it's above and beyond your ken, you're just plebs. You'll be familiar with this argument. Garbage. The economy is part of society. Our society is democratic. If we want to have a say in our economy, that's our democratic right. We have a democratic right to say we have a low-wage economy and we don't want it. We want a high-wage economy. How do we do that? Phew! That's just the intro. Let me tell you how we create the Scottish economic nirvana. And everything else along with it. Right, one, industrial policy. This is so important. The laissez-faire, leave it alone, keep your fingers crossed, UK economy says we mustn't interfere. Well, as we've seen, if you watch a big burly guy mugging a granny and you don't interfere, well, we know what's going to happen. The granny's not going to win. So, if we want to see us, ordinary people that don't have corporate lobbyists winning, we're going to have to get some interference going. I can't go over everything. We've got a whole paper about industrial policy, massive. There's lots and lots and lots of stuff that we've got to do. But above all, we have got to start to create the conditions that create good work. So a national investment bank, so that we can invest in industry properly. Long, patient, slow finance, everything our banking sector doesn't do. We've got to create that. We've got to start using government policy and procurement to create order books. Why is it that your school and your health centre is buying food not from the rich farming lands of Fife, but from international high-volume processors, sending shit food to people who need better food, children and the sick? Why are they not eating the fine food of Fife? Because that would put profit into your pockets, and we can't have that. If it was a local economy, then you'd be doing it well out of it, so they make sure that's not possible. And this massive rush for so-called global trade. We forgot that 70% trade is local, and if you neglect that trade, that's the trade that puts money in ordinary people's pockets. We've got to get back to localised trade. We have to have local supply chains. We have to get public sector contracts back down to a size that means that if you're a local butcher, you could sell to your local school, because that's impossible in Scotland. If you're a local baker's, you could sell to your local health centre. That's impossible in Scotland. You look at countries that we should be like. A town of this size would have a microbrewery, 1 or 2 large-scale bakers. They'd have a number of small farms selling in the kind of farmers market style stuff would be happening every day. That's what it would look like in France. That's what it would look like in a Nordic economy, where they still have local economies. You've got Tesco selling you shit and paying you shit, and that's why we get no wages in the economy.
Yeah, but then again, that comes down to accountability of who's actually buying stuff.
Oh, sure.
So talk about being democratic, but it's me that goes to Tesco's and chooses not to go to Jimmy Butcher's.
Yes, absolutely.
It's
Yes.
everybody in this room that we can.
And yet, I'm going to make shout out. I'm happy to take questions as we go along. I'm here on the anyway. Yes. Now this is a little bit of a complicated question to answer in a very simple way. We've created a system which has a stupid deal at its heart. The stupid deal at the heart of the system is we'll give you low wages, and in return we'll give you cheap prices. Now, what happens is if you keep people's wages really low, they buy cheap micro sausages. That's what they do. But when people's wages rise, that's not the choice they make. So I don't want to get too carried away here. We have supermarkets in Norway and Sweden and Finland and whatever, but those supermarkets sell that their wages are much higher. So I didn't get to tell you this, but the average salary in Scotland is £25,000. The average salary in Norway is £45,000. The salary of the 10% of the lowest paid people in Scotland is £6,000. The salary of 10% poorest people in Norway is £25,000. So the poorest 10% of Norwegians earn the same average as all Scots. That gives you an idea of the difference. And once you've got that money in their pockets, they make different choices. They still have supermarkets, but they don't. You go in a Nordic supermarket, they're not selling hyper low rendered meat products which are barely edible. That's not the choice they make once they've got money in their pockets. They're much more committed to local butchers. And one of the things is, again, this is quite complicated, but the way we structure our economy, the local butcher is only selling to you. Therefore, his prices, his margins are high, so you're paying more. If he was supplying the local school, his business gets bigger, his margins get higher, and he can reduce his prices. This is one of the things we've got to recognise. If you have no strong local economy, then being able to actually participate in that local economy is difficult. Once you create a strong local economy, it becomes better. So think of another example. Tourism in this country is hell of an expensive for us. But that's because we don't go. So half the hotels in Scotland are empty for half of the year. So their margins are low, so they have to charge high prices. So we could either just say, well, that's it, tourism's too expensive. Or we could say, what happens if we started giving people say on our new nationalised railways? We gave every family one return ticket to anywhere of their choice and a discount on a hotel. What happened if we encouraged people to start going and spending more time in our country and our facilities by reducing the costs? It would increase their occupancy, it would increase their profits, and it means that they're more profitable, they can reduce their costs. It's the crazy trap that we've got into, that if it isn't stack it high, sell it cheap, it won't work. But if you stack everything high and sell it cheap, then everything else definitely won't work. What they do in the Nordic economy is they've got much more balance. Of course they've got supermarkets, but supermarkets are only one of the places that people buy. And supermarkets sell local produce. They sell from local suppliers, they sell from their local microbrewery and all these kind of things. So I'm obviously whipping through this. It's about changing the whole system over time to get us not just willing to, but able to. And this is the really interesting thing. Somebody was saying to me, I make this argument quite a bit when I'm talking to more right of centre audiences, that the Nordic model, that northern utopia that we want to be more like, not utopia, it's pretty impressive compared to us. They say it's all based on high taxes. And I say, no, it's not, it's all based on a productive economy. High taxes are what you pay from choice once you've got good wages. Because once you've got good wages, and you say to people, what do you want to do with them? They say, I want better public services. That's what they say they want to do with them. And someone was saying to me, yeah, okay, so in theory there must be a very highly productive, high-wage economy where they chose not to pay high taxes. And I kind of stopped and thought, no, it isn't really, because that's what people want. If you give people decent money, they'll eat decent food. If you give people decent money, we want decent public services. It's us that assumes it's a perpetual drive to look for 10 pence off, 5 pence off, cheaper, push the price down to herald equality. This is all part of an economic system which feeds us shit wages and then feeds us shit food because we can't afford good food nor shit wages. And then we sit around and say, good old Britain, at least the sausages are cheap. No, it's the wrong way round. So, I'll jump back into it. Ask me more, shout out anyway. This is the point. You've got to change how the economy works. You've got to change behaviours and attitudes, but not by lecturing people, by putting money in their pockets and letting them choose. You put money in people's pockets and they buy better stuff. And the much more they get better stuff from local suppliers, and that's how it works. So that's localism. I'll actually wrap up because I didn't really need to talk about industrial policy for an hour and a good question. But, this is only a fraction of the things that we need to do. We need to keep much more of our industry in Scotland. Don't know who in here wears contact lenses. Disposable contact lenses, best thing ever invented. Come back from the pub, a bit drunk. The best things ever invented. Invented in Scotland. Invented in Scotland. £300,000 of public money, £100,000 of private equity money. At their peak, disposable contact lenses were being manufactured in Livingston. 1,000 people employed in Livingston manufacturing disposable contact lenses. Way more than that now. Many more than that people manufacture contact lenses in Virginia. Because the second a British company is profitable, an equity company buys it and exports it. Because we have the lowest level of competitions policy basically in the developed world. We encourage people to come in and take our industry. Because an equity sale makes the financial services sector rich. Part of the job, whenever you get an equity sale, the financial services sector has transaction costs all the way through it. They think that's good. We lose industry, we lose jobs, and we get a wee one-off burst in GDP and everyone applauds. It's crazy. We have to keep much more of our industry in Scotland. It has to be much more productive. We have to invest in a whole bunch of ways. Let me give you another couple of examples of what we can do. Now, this is now straying out into the bigger picture. I won't tell you how we get the jobs, but this is in the bigger picture. Scotland, Britain, is the only country in Europe that does not own its national grid. Every other country in Europe, all 27 other countries, own their national grid. Ours is owned by 2 private multinational corporations, 6 across Britain, 2 in Scotland. Now this has all sorts of effects, but among them is the fact that we have no control over our grid. We went out the night, we found a magic stone in the garden there, which had limitless energy on it. We still couldn't demand that the grid would put a connection into it. It wasn't in their financial interest, they could just say, nah, limitless energy doesn't help us, beat it. But that's where we are with an energy system that we can't plan. What could we do if we could plan our energy system? First of all, take the grid back and collective ownership would cost us virtually nothing. You only have to compensate for cost, but since the customer pays the full cost for the grid, all of the capital cost of the grid is passed on to the customer, all of it. So we've already paid for the grid, so we can just take it back. European laws are quite clear on this, make this full compensation for something. But it wouldn't cost very much. We take the grid back into collective ownership. We don't nationalise Scottish Power. We don't nationalise Scottish and Southern Electricity. We put them in a contract, like they do in most countries, to do what we want on the grid. Build it here, build it there. Then, once we're there, we can decide how we develop the generation capacity. Now this is really important, because the model that we use in Scotland is we allow rich landowners to invite multinational corporations to put Chinese manufactured wind turbines on their land. The Chinese manufacturers make a lot of money. The multinational corporation makes a lot of money. The landowner makes a lot of money. Us, our wind, what do we get out of it? 20% of whatever we can catch from them. That's all we get. Tax on their profits. Why? Why are we so generous like this? God knows. I don't understand it. If we were owning the grid, we would control where and how we develop energy in a collectively owned system. We could do this so easily, because energy is one area whereby there is no risk. Everybody needs electricity. The entire generation capacity will have to be changed. It's all running out. All the thermal generation is running out. We have to replace it all over the next 20 years. We will be paying for it anyway. So here's the question. Do we want to pay for it in such a way that it makes multinational corporations, Chinese manufacturers and rich landowners wealthy? Or do we want to take another model? Because what we can do very easily is set up a national company, or a number of small local companies, develop energy collectively, so you can decide where your local energy is. And if you don't want a wind farm next to you, that's fine. You'll lose the income, You know, you just have to be the choice. But then if you do want it there, you can control how big, how much, how far, and you get the income from it. But above all, there's big benefit here is, if we do that, we can decide when we manufacture the kit. If we have energy at our control, we can say no, we'll manufacture all the renewable technologies in Scotland using Scottish hands. This can create tens of thousands of jobs straight away. High quality manufacturing jobs immediately. And what does it cost us? Nothing more than it would anyway. China might be 10%, 20% cheaper, but to be quite honest, those 10,000 jobs, just the tax credits that we'd save in putting 10,000 people into work, would pay off any difference between the two prices. We can do this now. We can build a big, major national programme of housing immediately. Housing is another area where you get income. Remember that with energy, the full cost of energy passes to the customer. In housing, you get rents. You get paid back from the rent. We can borrow 30, 40-year mortgage-style borrowing and have a massive programme of extremely high-quality public house building, public rental house building. So, you know the German house factories you see on the television, but these fabulous high-tech, brilliant houses, quickly, cleanly, efficiently, and inexpensive. We can do that. We can set that up. We can start to create these tens of thousands of jobs. And the aim here is to get where Germany is. In Germany, even young professionals, young doctors, young teachers, they don't want a mortgage. They want a nice house that they can rent. Maybe one day when they're older and they're kids and whatever, then the idea that they with a mortgage, millstone round their neck. And they're right. It's only in this country, because housing has been used as a speculative thing to make profits. It's only in this country that not having a house is a disaster. In Germany, they get these long leases and top quality public rental houses, which are such that they can adapt them however they want. They want to decorate them, they want to change windows, they're allowed to do it. They may live in them for 20 years, they only maybe move if their job changes or if they have a family. But that's the model that we can get to, because our house market's out of control. It's about to crash the UK economy again. Mark my words on this one. The financial services sector is in every bit as dodgy a shape as it was in 2008. And the house price bubble is going to tip it over again. I won't be too depressing. Right, so we're doing these sorts of things. What other things can we do? Let's go a couple over and I'll sit down. What other things can we do? Well, who's happy? That's an easy question. Who's happy with the bank? Right. Why have we done nothing about it? Germany, Japan, both of those countries, 75% plus of the banking market is publicly owned. Their banks do the following: give you a current account, give you a loan if you need it, give you a mortgage if you need it, credit card, debit card, all the usual, end of story. What they don't do is send you material trying to encourage you to get loans you don't need, pester you all the time, phoning up saying you want a customer service at me. They're just trying to sell you shit you don't need. The German banks don't do that. Japanese banks don't do that. So very straightforwardly, very easily, we just get every local authority in Scotland to set up a small local community bank. It wouldn't cost very much. From that point, a reliable, solid, boring community bank. Your money's safe, it's got all the services you need. You do it immediately, then it's up to you. If you want to stay with a crazy, risky bank, knock yourself out. That's your call. But if you want a steady, boring banking system that does exactly what you need it to do and doesn't pester you the rest of the time and doesn't crash, move to your local bank. And once we do that, we've got a banking sector that works for us. It's not exploiting us. Oh, I can do this for a long, long time. The book, which I've got a copy of, has got literally hundreds upon hundreds of these sorts of ideas, things that we can do with the powers of independence that will change everything. Childcare, renewable energy, on participatory democracy, changing things with the political, that's a big one, changing things with the political parties who no longer dominate our lives. Break that model. Well, I tell you how, because that one's got a great cheer from a couple of people. I have been in politics my whole puff, and I like politicians, and they do mean well, but they get stuck in this stupid system, which means once they're in, they've all got their backs against the wall and their guns are all loaded, and they say, actually, it could be done better this week. No, that's not good. We've got to learn to say, maybe people other than me has got a good idea. So what we've suggested is that we change this forever. That we put in place things to make sure it never happens again. It's the kind of politics, the bunker politics we've been facing in Britain. So for example, we've got the worst local democracy in the developed world in Scotland. Where's your local authority? How far away are you?
9 miles.
Well, you're doing quite well. It means it's 40 miles away from me. We've got a local authority in Scotland that's the size of Belgium. Who's that local? No, Highlands. Highlands is the size of Belgium. Just land area the size of Belgium. Remember that Strathclyde doesn't exist anymore because South Lanarkshire. We've got the biggest, by a factor of about 50, we've got the biggest and most remote local authorities in Scotland. And this is the only country in Europe where a town your size has no say of any description in how your town's run. None. Think about it. If you wanted to put a plaque in the wall, you could send one councillor to Glenrothes to beg on your behalf. And if the rest of them say, nah, we're not putting plaques up this week, that's you finished. An entire town of sentient adults aren't allowed to put a plaque on the wall. We need another layer of local democracy in this town, and every town like it. And you know that in Norway, see a town of this size, it's community council, what we would call community council. In Norway, that community council holds the budget for the hospital and the school. I don't know what the hospital service you've got like, but we've got 5 days a week. If we wanted in my wee town to have our 5 day a week accident emergency extended to 7, that'd be up to us. We need to shift the money from somewhere else, or raise taxes, or maybe we need to do some sort of fundraising drive or something or other, but we have the power to do that. Because we'd say, South Lanarkshire Council says that's inefficient, but I don't care about inefficient if my daughter gets a burn at 6:30 on a Saturday evening and my nearest hospital's 40 minutes drive, and it is. So we can do that. Local democracy. No more appointments. Government just appoints its pals to things with no discussion. Rich people run this country, appointed by other rich people. Why? There is no reason not to elect people. So you pick anything that people are appointed to. We could elect them instead. We could give them a chance. And I just pick something like, say, the Scottish Arts Council. Scottish Arts Council, Creative Scotland. That's filled with bankers. Why are bankers running the arts sector in Scotland? We know who the practising artists are. Why don't we let them elect the board from among the people? We've got a disabled commissioner who's appointed by people who can go tap dancing 5 nights a week. Why doesn't the disabled community allow to vote its commissioner? We've got universities. They're appointed by other rich people. No discussion and no debate, just up between themselves. Why can't the students and staff vote for the governing body of their university? This happens other places. Why don't you trust us? Why don't they trust us to run our country? Because we don't let them get away with what they're getting away with. Expert groups and decisions. This is the one that I think could revolutionise everything. I feel so strong about it. Because I work with government. Every so often you get to a point in government wants someone to give them some advice. What do we do now? So what do? They get half a dozen rich people, and they're always over 60. I mean, they never set up these groups with anyone in them who's in the bottom 95% of the population. Remember, to be in the top 5% of the population by earnings, you only have to earn about £50,000. That's loose change in a local authority. You know, once you get to the senior levels, to put these. So why do we have these rich groups? Because whenever you see these rich groups, they come up with 2 conclusions every time. 1, there's definitely weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and 2, there's definitely no way that deregulating the banks could ever go wrong. You can't put 6 people who all think the same in a room and expect to get a good decision. We would never accept it in a criminal trial. What do you do in a criminal trial? You take 15 members of the public, you put them in a room, you give them the evidence, you ask them to make a decision. Let's start doing that. They're called mini-public, citizens' juries. Every time government wants a decision, I'm not against the experts. I'm a big fan of learning your trade. You're not the only skill, the only knowledge that fits in. So put a citizens' jury in place. Have that whenever there's a decision to be made. So you might just get it through your letter, you've been called to citizen jury. You will be 4 weeks, just like you might be in a normal criminal trial. And then you get presented the evidence from experts, and from people who disagree with them, and from people who disagree with them. And it's your decision to give advice to the Scottish Government. And that decision will reflect the people of Scotland, not the rich. We can change this. We've got another 4 or 5 ways suggested in this for really making participation. And this is what I want to do. I don't want a yes vote to return to a kind of top-down bunker politics that we've already got from Westminster. This yes vote has to change everything. We've got to change everything fundamentally and permanently. And there's one thing that I want to do. I want to break professional control in Scotland. We have to get this little clique that's convinced it knows best for all of us all the time. We need to break it open, and we need to get in there. We need to get in there ourselves and start to say, actually, you know what? This isn't right. To give you an example, if we had that system, there is no way on God's earth they'd have been allowed to privatise the Royal Mail. Because they couldn't have got 15 people in Scotland to sit in a jury and agree with them. Because it's a stupid idea. So let's break open politics, really democratise it. Now, I've covered about 3 chapters of the 10, and the only bits and pieces of that of the book. There's so much material in this, there's so much that we can do. If you tell me what you're bothered about, I'll tell you how we fix it. We've got the full capacity across this entire area to do whatever we need. Now, this is far too much information, I accept. Rattle this out far too fast, sure. You won't be able to remember any of the statistics, and probably half of the actual details, sure, they're all in the book. Why am I doing this? This is the key thing. What really annoyed me about the last week in the Yes campaign, independence campaign generally, is that we get attacked again. Really nastily attacked, and I'm sick of it. You know something? I'm sick of them, other side, telling them I'm vile. I'm not. I'm quite nice. I really am. I pick up litter to help old folk across the road. I'm not a vicious person. You lot look quite pleasant to me, and dear, all but one of you are the enemy. You know, you are all the evil cybernet conspiracy that's going to bring down society. I've had enough. I've had enough of this nonsense. We are not bad people. Tell you who's on my side. Who's on my side are the Greens, the environmental campaigners, the socialists, the people who campaign against poverty, the church groups, the pacifist groups, the anti-war groups, you know, the feminist groups, the gender groups. They're all on my side. Who's on their side? UKIP, the Scottish Defence League, the extreme end of the Orange Order. And they're calling us horrible. I've had enough. I've had enough of this, because it's getting our heads down. And this is the thing above all which makes me sick about Work Together, is, you know how they call it Project Fear? And you'll hear a lot from our side about it, it's fear against hope. Right, okay, I hope I don't disappoint you too much by saying it's got nothing to do with fear against hope. This is a misreading of it. I'm a political strategist, this is what I do for a job. If you want someone to make a decision, the suggestion that fear will stop them is not correct. If you think if you're not sure about that, imagine I opened that door just now and brought the tiger in. Would that have the effect of making you do nothing or do something? I suspect you'd all do something, right? Fear can make you do stuff. There's only one thing which will guarantee to make people not do things, and that's lacking confidence. Confident people will take chances. Unconfident people will never take a chance. Never. And if we don't take a chance, we'll never win. You can't win without taking a chance. What they want to do is not scare people, they want to break down their confidence again and again and again until people feel and believe that they're not good enough, that they can't stand up on their own 2 feet and change this. This is what they want us to do. And last week and the week before that, my God, they labelled that on. We were all on the back foot. And I'll put my hands up and say, I was annoyed at the SNP. I wanted them to come forward and give a better defence. You know, that whole Claire Ladley business and the whole, we didn't do anything wrong there. None of us did anything wrong there. So step forward, stop greeting and say, this is wrong. Our campaign is an honourable campaign and did nothing wrong. I wanted to hear that. And nobody's perfect. But why was you at Scotland having a dig at Wings this week? And why? They're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But let's stand together. Let's stand up tall. And let's say we're not being bullied by this stuff. We need to build our confidence back up. We are the most amazing movement. I've been involved in all sorts of stuff. I've spent my day, I'm supposed to stop talking, but since I spent my day with the kind of leading lefties of the London Metropolitan State, with the good people. And they're all up here to see what they can learn from us. Genuinely, they're fascinated. This is the senior left, and not Labour, obviously, senior left thinkers in London. They're all coming up here, and they're so fascinated. And they keep saying, I've never seen anything like this. Public meetings. I mean, one of them was saying, we've got a really good, lively public meeting that we do once a month in a pub in London. It's just packed, we can have 80 people at it. So I have 250 folk in Motherwell on a pissy wet Tuesday night. And I've got like 60 folk in Kelty, 50 folk in Kelty. You know, you're in London and you're celebrating 80. You're Leeds, we're alive. Look at this place. It's amazing. I've been involved, I was telling them, I've had 3 shots at this. I was doing just about old enough. I went down to London in 94, 95, just at that moment when Tories were coming to an end, and it looked like this could be a chance to really change Britain for the better. Well, that went well. And then, 10 years after that, I was with a lot of the anti-globalisation people and the Make Poverty History people. We marched and we talked and we had ideas, and how did that go? This is my 3rd shot in changing the world in my life, and I'm scared I don't get a 4th. We can't mess this one up. For now, the day this is over, we've got to work going to get out there. We're going to make sure that this one isn't a missed opportunity. Because all the stuff that I've talked about today is the story of how we can change it. And the reason that I rattle it off at a rate faster than you can tell is I just want you to leave filled with the confidence that there are people in this country that know how to do it. That there are people in this country who are clear on how we change it, what we do, the kind of country that we want, the kind of country people say they want, the steps that we've got to take to get there. We have everything we need in this country. We're resource rich, we're people skill rich, everything we need we have in this country. All the knowledge we need to do this, we have in this country. And incidentally, among our many friends around the world who are itching to come and help us if we vote yes. The world is filled with brilliant people who would love to see Scotland go independent, who would love to help us to build this kind of economy. We have everything we need. We have everybody we need. We have the will. We have the will in this country. Scotland wants this. There's no question in my mind. Every time that they get a chance to vote, people of Scotland vote for whatever's closest to this. That's why they left Labour and went to the SNP, because the SNP became closer. They need to go closer again. I'm not content with corporation tax cuts and leaving Scottish and Southern in control of energy. So I want to see more from the SNP. But the will is there to do this. We have everything we need. We have everyone we need. We have the will. The only thing we lack is the power. And we tell this people. We tell people we've got it. We're ready to go. We don't need anything. We're ready. Let's just go. All we need is the power. And to get that, quick tick in the box, and we're off. And we're aware of here. Independence gives you power. We've been a powerless people for so long. We can just get that yes vote. We get the power back. When we get that power back, we can do whatever the hell we want with it. And better together, with all your tales of it'll no work or it can't be done, that's fine. Because once we've got the yes, you can just piss off. If you don't believe it can be done, you can get away out of Scottish politics. You can head off into the sunset, because we do know how to do it. And we've had enough wait. We've waited and we've waited and we're ready. We're so close. In 3 months from now, we can be ready to build this. We can be ready to do this. Now I've read something today that I wrote and I forgot about. Because this is the thing. You could use your hand to point a finger. And you use your hand to build something. Name your blame. Time for change. Let's get out there. Let's get the hat full. Let's talk by now. Let's build that Scotland.